The United Nations top human rights official has condemned Israel's expulsion of the UN's special rapporteur from the country, calling it unprecedented and deeply regrettable. On Monday, Israeli authorities detained Richard Falk and held him for 20 hours before putting him back on a plane to Geneva. Falk recently questioned whether certain practices by Israel amount to war crimes. Richard Falk joins us now live from Irvine, California. Professor Falk, thanks very much for being with us. And first off, would you tell us the circumstances of your detention and expulsion from Israel? And what kind of reasons did Israeli authorities give you for this?
Well, it was a rather drawn-out process where they never really gave me any adequate explanation beyond referring to a foreign ministry statement that was made several months ago when I was first selected to be special rapporteur by the Human Rights Council in Geneva. That statement alleged that I was biased against Israel and that I had made some provocative criticisms of the occupation policy in articles that I had written previously. But in my view, the issue is really not...
How do you respond to these kinds of accusations?
Well, I respond basically by saying it's a diversion from looking at whether what I've been saying is true or not. Israel has tried to make the issue about whether there is an opinion that the person has had that should lead to his or her disqualification. But that's really a red herring. The real issue is what I've said in the reports and what I've written true or not? Is it accurate or not? And I believe it is, and I believe that what Israel is doing is trying to avoid having the nature of the occupation understood widely in the world, because the more it's understood, the more it will appear to be a policy that cannot be defended legally, morally, or politically.
But Professor Falk, why do you think they're doing this with you specifically? It hasn't been done before with any of your predecessors. In fact, John Dugard, the special rapporteur whom you replaced, was very outspoken in his criticism of Israeli policies towards Palestinians. He was never denied entry from Israel. I just simply wonder, and I hate to bring this up, but could your Jewish faith be something that particularly irks the Israeli government as well?
Of course, I don't know. It's not something that has been explicitly acknowledged. It is true that in the Jerusalem Post that has criticized me from time to time, they do emphasize that, and perhaps it's an element. I think part of the reason is that after John Dugard, they campaigned very hard to get a successor who they would find more sympathetic. And when that didn't happen and I was selected, I think that made them very angry and upset, and they tried to indicate that they would not cooperate with the UN. They would punish the UN for not giving them a rapporteur who was prepared to be much more sympathetic with their policies.
You're an American national as well. I believe you were traveling on your U.S. passport. Has the State Department reacted at all to your deportation? Do you expect them to take up this issue with the Israeli government?
I've asked them to take it up with the U.S. government through the embassy in Tel Aviv. They said they would try to have the decision about my denial of entry reversed, but I have no real evidence that they've done anything tangible. They did oppose my appointment initially and have been critical of the reports I've made to the UN General Assembly last month. So I'm not very confident that very much will be done on my behalf. Maybe there will be protest about the treatment that was accorded to me at the airport, because that is really not something that was directed to me personally, but it was an affront to the authority of the United Nations.
But just
And
very
I feel
briefly, Professor Falk, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but very briefly, were you at all surprised that Ban Ki-moon did not issue a statement regarding this issue, whereas the UN Human Rights High Commissioner did?
Well, I was disappointed that it hasn't been treated as seriously as it deserves to be. The President of the General Assembly has issued very strong statements of anger at the failure of Israel to allow me to perform my UN role. And that's important.
Professor Richard Falk, many thanks for being here with us.
Thanks so much for having me.